Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Northeast PCC first ever Zoom breakfast meeting broadcast. With us today, we have our speaker is Mark Fallon, who is the president and CEO of the Berkshire Company. I'll give you a little bit of bio for him. He helps his clients develop solutions using emerging technologies and expert leadership. Mark received his bachelor's and master's degree from Suffolk University in Boston. And in addition to the articles published in numerous periodicals and e-zines, Mark is the author of the ebooks 110 Tips to Improve Your Mail Center and Addressing the Mail. Mark serves on the Postal Customer Council Advisory Committee and the Postmaster General Mailers MTAC Committee. The topic today is home or office or both. This is very fitting because this is kind of where we're at right now and kind of what our world has become more recently. Overnight, companies have transformed how they operate. Only essential employees are reporting to their place of business, and more people than ever are working from homes. At the same time, their children can't go to school or daycare, or they're doing so online. Many of us who have avoided Skype, Zoom, GoToMeeting, or WebEx are getting crash courses in that technology. So without further ado, I will introduce our speaker, Mark Fallon.
Chris, thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate everybody joining us on this. I know that the Northeast Florida PCC is known for their breakfast meetings, and hopefully you all have your coffee with you. I have mine with me, and I can hold it like that because it's a big mug. I always have a big mug of coffee, and please enjoy your coffee. You're all on mute right now. We will unmute at the very end in case people have questions. We're going to record this webinar. When it's over, I will download it, edit out any of my mistakes. Just edit the beginning and the end so it's crisp, upload it, and I will send everybody on this who's registered a link so you can watch it and share it later, as long as the handouts. I ask that if you have a question, on the control panel in the lower right-hand side is a questions box. So please type your questions in there. I'll be watching that as long as someone can type anything in there. And we will address as many of those while we're going through this and at the end as well. Lastly, please laugh at my jokes. Now, I know I can't hear you, but in my heart, I can hear you. So I would really appreciate it if you would take the time to laugh at my jokes, especially the bad dad jokes. I'm not a dad, but I know how to tell dad jokes. So we're going to cover a lot today, but the first thing I want to do is learn a little bit about you. Normally when I do an event, I'm walking around the audience beforehand and talking to people, and unfortunately I can't do that. So what I'd like to do is launch a little poll to learn about what your home office is like. So I've set this up, and it basically asks, do you have a separate room that's designated solely as an office? Do you have a multi-purpose room, or are you kind of winging it right now, right? The living room, the kitchen table, the den, outdoors. So if you could click on, well, people are doing this very quickly. How many do we have set up? We're still collecting responses. We're only up to 25%. Don't be shy. Nobody can see what you chose. I can't see who clicked what. Can everybody, okay, good. Now more are responding. Nobody else is adding in what they want to do. We're only at 50%, actually 30%. Okay, so now more people have voted. Okay, so that's, for some reason, mine is not working. I don't know why it's not working, and that's part of what we're going to talk about in a little bit. What happens when things don't work? Because it's a little bit of magic, right, as things go. So I'm going to close out the poll, and we'll see where people are at. So we'll share the poll. Let's see if this works correctly. Hopefully you can all see this on the screen. So 38% have a separate room, 23% have a multi-purpose room, and 38% does the kitchen table count. So we're pretty evenly split, right, between the three different types. So as we go through this, I'm going to share ideas that I have learned. If people have tips that they have learned that I didn't mention, again, use the question box, and we'll also unmute at the end. So a little background about myself. I've worked out of a home office since 2001. That photo you see is the current world headquarters of the Berkshire Consulting Company, Inc., doing business as the Berkshire Company and markfallon.com. I'm also, well, until 2 months ago, a road warrior. I usually fly over 100,000 air miles a year and stay in hotels over 100 nights a year. I've been speaking since 1994, and I've been giving either teleseminars and webinars since 2008. However, I'm still learning. So for example, on stage, if you've seen me, I like to roam around the audience. I like to engage you personally in one-on-one, and that's not necessarily as easy, or more things can go wrong that are harder to overcome. So we'll share that as we go along. So, with your office, you need to think about what's available, right? That's what's really important. What do you have that's ready for you? And you need to make the best out of it. So when, I first started the company, as you heard, I began in an office that was not even an office. It was the family room. I took a staining table out of my workshop in the basement, finished the top, and that was my desk. The next house we moved into, as you can see here, we bought a house that had an office built into it. The previous owner sold insurance from his house, so he had an office set up. It was pre-wired for phone lines. It was fantastic. So I was able to set up something. In my current home, we downsized. I have to use what would be the spare bedroom. So you can make do with what you have. Look around you. What is the best place that you can use? And you have to think about what you need to have around you, right? You're going to need phones, chargers, internet connections, right? If you're me, you're going to need even more than that. The most important ingredient, I need to have my coffee around me. There's a reason why I have a really big mug, okay? It works. So what else do you need? Do you need windows? I love to be able to look outside. Right above my laptop, I'm looking out. I have a beautiful view of my backyard. That is something that I need. So think about all of those things when you look around your house and decide where it is you're going to set up your office, or where you're going to move your office, right? Just because you have something set up now doesn't mean you have to stay with it. So you feel free to move around. It's cheaper. You don't have to put a request into facilities management. You can do it all on your own. When we think about communications, most people are thinking about talking. I would like to talk a little bit about listening. That is just as important. We all have speakers built into our laptops and into our computers. However, often we need to be paying even closer attention. So as you can see, I actually have 3 different types of headsets. On the far right is, you see the Bluetooth that I use for my phone. It works better than putting the phone on speaker so that everybody around me can hear what I'm talking about, especially if I'm in a crowded room. I try never to use my phone in a crowded room, but sometimes you have to. Having a headset in your ear allows the other person to not share with everybody. They're only sharing with you. The middle set of headphones are for when I'm listening to podcasts on my phone, or when I'm traveling, watching a movie on my phone. And again, it's allowing me to have privacy, and also I'm not bothering the person who's sitting to my left and seated to my right. And lastly, the large set of headphones, and for that's when I'm listening to webcasts and WebExes and GoToMeetings at home. And that has a microphone in it so that I can use it. Now, you're gonna ask, well, Mark, why aren't you using it now? Because I don't look good in it, and I'm a very vain human being. Those of you who know me know that's true. That's one of those jokes you're supposed to laugh at. I know some of my dear friends who are on this are laughing right now or are agreeing with me. It says, use pictures. So I'm not sure what that means. So, the last part is you're going to be talking with customers on the phones, with employees on the phone. You're going to be listening to Zoom meetings with people, go to webinars, go to WebEx, etc. So you need to ensure that in addition to this privacy, that you have privacy around you. And that's why I have a closed door. And that's really important. When the door is closed, people know not to come in to my room. That means I am on the phone with somebody that I need to have a private conversation with, or I'm delivering this webinar and I don't need people walking behind me, right? We've all seen the commercials and the skits on interesting things that can happen behind you. I try to make sure that that doesn't happen by having a closed door. And that's really important that you do that. So today I'm on a webcam. Most of you aren't. Chris was at the beginning. And there's a lot of things you need to know about the proper use of a webcam, or should I say the best use of a webcam. First thing is, what camera are you going to use? For most of us, the camera on our laptops are sufficient. If you want to, you can use money and invest in an external camera, and you can invest in, for example, I have a green screen. I don't have a wall that's painted gray and has the Berkshire Company logo on it. And green screens can be lots of fun. I like to be on TV. I have a favorite bear, and some of you hopefully will recognize my favorite bear. And occasionally he joins me on meetings. And this obviously is something that I have to make sure I'm on a client with a sense of humor or with my staff as well. So that's the first part, with the camera. And you have to make sure that you think about, so I have myself on TV for a reason. Think of yourself as being on TV. Look at the people who are being interviewed on, especially today where everybody's working from home, on late night TV or on news channels. How do they look? How do you look? And that's all based upon your relationship with the camera. Now, what is proper lighting? Hopefully now all of you can see me well, right? It looks like I can see myself. But a lot of folks don't recognize how they look in their lighting. They have a window open behind them, or they're backlit. This is what you look like when you're backlit. Not exactly a great picture. Maybe for some of you that is a great picture of me. So take care to look around and how you look on screen with the lighting. No overhead lighting. Again, it creates the shadow in front of your face. Experiment. So I actually have two lights. It's because, which way am I going to turn my head? And if I just shut off one of them, as you can see, that is a little bit more difficult. You can't see my pen. Now when I turn it on, I look better. Different times of the day. So off to one side, that's where the sun sets in the afternoon. I have to make sure I pull down the shade, or I just get completely, flooded out by the afternoon light. So experiment with the light and pay attention to what the light does for you. Now, I talked about listening. You do have to think about sound. Does the microphone on your laptop work well? Here's one of the challenges with the microphone on your laptop. If you're typing everybody can hear it when you use that microphone. So you may want to consider an external microphone. I have one that's wired because I'm doing a lot of webinars right now and a lot of meetings online. So I want to make sure that my customers can hear me and that my audiences can hear me. You could go back, if you looked at the headset that I had earlier, had a microphone on it. Just a word of advice: if you use a headset or an external mic, make sure that it's wired. Bluetooth does a lot of things great, but when you're speaking over the internet, especially on something that's going to be recorded, at the end, you can kind of sound like you're underwater. The last part about sound is the most important button on your computer when you're on an online meeting, or on your phone when you're in an online meeting, and that's the mute button. Even when I'm on a meeting with a client and one of my employees or one of my consultants is leading the call, I mute my phone. I don't want to step on them while they're talking. So use your mute button when you're not the person speaking. It's really important. Think about how you look. Again, I've been speaking since '94, and very few of you have ever seen me speak from a podium. I can't stand it. I can't stand still. It's not my natural habitat. So I've had to relearn and reinforce how I sit properly. Sitting up straight. Hopefully all your moms and dads told you to sit up straight at the table. Sit up straight in front of the camera. In most cases, people aren't going to be able to see your hands. However, that doesn't mean you aren't doing things with your hands. So a great tool that I use whenever I'm on a call, whenever I'm on a WebEx or a GoToMeeting, is I put a pen in my hand. Why do I put a pen in my hand? One is it's natural. Two, I can actually take notes while the person's talking, or I can pretend that I'm taking notes while I'm talking, that I think that they're interesting and I'm actually doodling. But I am not changing my screen. So that means that I'm not, looking at a website or checking my email, right? By holding something in your hand, you're preventing yourself from playing with the keyboard. And that's really important. And by the way, that's being polite as well. So eye contact. If you've noticed, I'm able to look directly at the camera. Remember, you're not looking at the screen. You're not looking at your script, right? You're looking at the camera. And you want to make sure that the camera is up high enough so you're not looking down to it. I'm sure some of you have seen people who have given meetings like this, or they've given interviews like this. You want to make sure that you're in the right spot. And you can buy all sorts of leveling devices, lifts. There are special laptop stands made for the model that you have. Of course, most of you know me, I'm a techie geek. I use something really high tech. It's called a shipping box. So I'm using a box that somebody had sent me something in. It fits perfectly on my desk. It wasn't quite high enough. So if you notice, I have a little folder underneath it, and it gets it to exactly the right height for me. So use, again, what's available to you. Some of you may be home for a very long time. Some of you may find out this is the new way you want to do business. So you may want to invest in something more. Again, use what works for you. So the last part is you want to make sure you're looking at the camera. Again, I went really high tech, and I use a sticky note to remind me where the camera is. And you think, do you really need to know that? Well, it's the natural tendency is for us to look at writing or to look at other people's faces, right? When you do, a lot of you will do a group meeting where everybody's on screen. If somebody's over on the right and you're looking at them, you're not looking at them. When you're looking at the camera, that's when you're looking at them. One of my consultants, Lois, she has a photo of her husband next to the camera. She taped a photo of her husband right next to the camera, and that's who she's looking at when she's talking online. So experiment with what works best for you. But remember, it's the camera, not the screen, and not your script that you want to make sure you're looking at. So before we go into a lot of platforms, I've been talking now for, 20 minutes almost, is I want to reward you all for being here today. And most of you who have been to my classes at the NPF or at other PCC events know that I like to do giveaways by collecting business cards. Couldn't do that this way, but you all registered. So I have entered you all into the Wheel of Names raffle. We are going to give away a Berkshire Company phone or iPad holder, so you can just put your phone in just like that. We're all doing online meetings. This is a great way to make sure your hands are free to take those notes like we just talked about. These are under $5, so all the postal people who are involved, you're eligible to play as well. So let's spin the wheel. So Michael Hayes, congratulations, you're our winner. After this webinar, I will send you an email and ask for you to send me your shipping address, and I will send to you via priority mail, because I only use the Postal Service, and I really do, I only use the Postal Service. The post office is a half-mile away, they know me well, and send you your gift. So there's a lot of different platforms that are available to people right now. Zoom has gotten the biggest buzz during this because they offered it for free to people if you were only going to have a certain number of people and you were only going to cut off at 40 minutes. So, but there were also privacy issues. The Postal Service has moved from WebEx, or is moving from WebEx to Zoom. The Postal Service has a special contract and special access to Zoom. So your privacy is assured when you're using the Postal Service's Zoom platform. I recommend you play with it as a board first, so you all get used to being on camera, and then start doing some of these yourself. We at the Berkshire Company, our preferred platform is GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar. We use GoToMeeting for meetings to up to about 25 people to 50 people. That we want that a lot of interaction with, and then GoToWebinar for events like this where I can have up to 1,000 people online. Google has both Hangout or Google Meet, depending upon the platform that you're using. Been around for a while. It integrates with the Google G Suite. So a lot of small companies use the Google Doc, Google Spreadsheets, etc. So it just integrates with your Google Calendar. If you're a Microsoft preferred person, Microsoft Teams integrates with Outlook. Then there's also Microsoft Skype, which has been around for a while. I still use Skype a lot when talking to people overseas. It's one of the original platforms that's out there. And then a new one that I heard that I added because I just love the name is Blue Jeans. And again, it will interact with employee systems, with customer systems, with sales systems. So you don't have to use just one. I was on, 2 weeks ago, I had 9 different meetings throughout the day, and I was on 5 different platforms throughout that day. Here's one of the challenges. Often when you change from GoToMeeting to Skype or GoToMeeting to Teams, it changes your audio, it changes your camera, it changes your microphone. So you have to make sure when you log in, the first thing I do is look at the settings and make sure they work properly. If you have a new computer, you may have to sync it with each one of these platforms. So online meetings. Now, most of us have done some form of online meetings in the past. So somebody uses, just really quickly here, a Nike shoebox to lift up their camera. Outstanding. When you have an online meeting, you know what? A lot of the same rules we use for regular meetings still apply. And the very first one is have an agenda. Don't meet online just so you're checking in. I start every day with a daily huddle. I believe in daily huddles. I know a lot of you use daily huddles, and that's good. But even then, you have an agenda. Don't just meet online because you can. Use email when it's appropriate. Use phone when it's appropriate, and then use online when it's appropriate. But have an agenda. Make sure you start with a welcome. If you notice, Chris started off this meeting explaining what it's about, explaining what's going to happen. Even if you're just doing a regular board meeting or a meeting with a client, set those same expectations. That's really important. Make sure everybody can get access to it. We did do a dry run before this, and I don't think Chris will mind me sharing this. His camera initially didn't sync with GoToMeeting, and he had to experiment with it to make it happen. And because we tested that, it was a smoother event for you today. So make sure you test. Also, a lot of these different platforms take up a lot of memory, so you need to shut down the other applications running in the background. Remember, I talked about having that pen in your hand. Make sure somebody is taking notes and then share that. We use a meeting minutes format for any meetings with clients, and we always have at least 2 consultants on the call so that one person takes notes. Then we make sure the notes are right and send them to everybody. Don't multitask. Ben, the magic of the pen. If you're in a meeting in person, would you be online at the same time? Now, okay, maybe some of you are. Maybe some of you, when you're in a regular meeting, you're like this. I think that's rude. It's just as rude when you're on a meeting, even if the camera isn't on you, for you not to be giving attention to the speaker. So you want to be just as polite. That's another reason, by the way, why I like to have the headphones, because it keeps all the external distractions away and I focus on what's on the screen. When you're doing a webinar, so we currently have 39 people on this call, that's great. For a meeting, 8 is probably the max number. Obviously, you can go higher, but the more you want to accomplish, especially online, the fewer people. And then again, that mute button, I can't emphasize it enough. I love being the organizer because then I can mute people. Nobody wants to hear, you in the background making your breakfast, getting the 3rd cup of coffee, and why didn't you send me coffee for this meeting, right? All of that. Make sure that you use that mute button. On meetings, whenever you can, use your cameras. And I know that that's not always comfortable for people, but use your cameras. This is from a presentation from GoToMeeting. The sales team achieved a 30% higher close rate when their cameras were turned on. Even if the customer's camera isn't turned on. I do a lot of customer calls. The customers don't like sharing their cameras for whatever reason. I have mine on. And you may be thinking, well, Mark, I'm not in sales, I'm a manager. Guess what? You're in sales. You're selling an idea to your team. You're selling an idea to your boss. Have your camera on. Make it personal. When people can see you, they can see your passion. They can see that this is something that you think is important. Now, you have to get used to it. So I talked about my daily huddle. Every day I meet with my team. Every day we have our cameras on. I don't require them to have a suit on for those meetings. Sometimes we're coming right from our workouts or right from breakfast or whatever. I don't worry about that. I don't worry about if there are dogs in the camera, there are kids in the camera. That's not important. What's important is we're getting comfortable with being on the camera. So use your cameras in as many meetings as possible, just so you get used to it, because this is part of your future, no matter what comes tomorrow. Now, I want to kind of close with some things that's really important for us to remember. Even before this pandemic, we heard about work-life balance, how important it is to balance work and life. Well, at least then, for most of us, you left the workplace and then you went home. There was a physical separation between the two. We no longer have that. We may have a few feet, or again, a third of you are using shared space. Actually, more than 60% of you are using shared space. So you're not necessarily leaving work. So it's going to be even harder to maintain that balance. And I want to cover some of the things that have worked well for me. The first is to remember, yeah, I've been doing this since 2001. Some people have been doing this since March. And a lot of people, Chris talked about this at the very beginning, they have children who would normally be in daycare who are now at home. They have children up to college age children who would normally either be in school or be at college who are now home. You have animals who normally wouldn't be with you at the office who are now there and don't necessarily care whether or not you're on a meeting. You can have technical issues, right? We started this. I'm very fortunate. The person who told me there was a technical issue is a friend, so I can reach out to her afterwards and see if we can figure out what went wrong. But this is new. We're experimenting with new technology. So I really am asking you, have a little bit of grace for these people. Have a little bit of grace for your speakers who are experimenting with new ways. Not everybody came out of the womb ready to work on a laptop. I know I didn't, because they didn't exist in the 1960s. So it's really important to, give people the opportunity. A lot of folks may, I get phone calls and text messages, people having to cancel meetings at the last minute. And that's, in the normal world, that happens a lot anyways, but now it's happening even more. Try to be understanding. And then the two words that are most important, be kind. If you think you're being kind, excellent, be kinder, right? Be as kind as possible during this time, especially with people that are figuring their way through this new way of doing business. Now, I'm a big believer in having a routine every day. I wake up, I work out, I love having breakfast. It's the one time of the day I eat a healthy meal. I love making breakfast. I was a short order cook in college. So, it's something I really enjoy. Then I have a daily huddle with my team. So I have a straight routine that happens every day. But what's really important is you don't allow that to get you stuck into a rut, right? So this picture was taken at my local coffee shop. I know, surprise, I was at a coffee shop, and I often would go there to work and to write just someplace different. Didn't take any customer calls there, but when I was writing, that's where I went. Or I would go to the library. I love libraries, and I would find a little corner, pop up my laptop, and start to work. Now I can't go there right now, so I still take breaks. I will get up, I will walk outside, I will just walk around the yard, get some fresh air. So make sure that you incorporate breaks into your days, that you're not just zooming in on the screen all the time, that you're taking a break and you're remembering where normally you would get up, and go talk to somebody, a coworker, or go out on the floor and check how work was going. Make sure you get up right now and well, don't get up right now, pay attention to the webinar, but make sure that you take the time during the day to take a break. Now, I'm a big believer in dressing correctly for the job. So if you've been to the National Postal Forum, you know that on Saturdays, I lead a Habitat for Humanity crew, so I dress appropriately. The rest of the week, you see me in the suit because I'm presenting. I'm presenting to you today, so I'm wearing my suit, right? And I'm wearing I don't know if you can see my ascot. Yep, you can. So I dress for the job. Now, when dressing for work, I don't wear a suit every day, right? I like to say that the best way to dress when you're working from home is think of it being a Saturday and you're going into work. Now, nobody else is going to be there, but somebody might show up. So you dress that way. You dress casually, but remember, somebody might see you. Because you know what? Somebody might call you at the last minute and say, hey, can we get on a video chat? So think about that. Now, there is a difference, of course, between video chats, right? So whenever I have a video customer call, that's how I look. I have the logo going behind me, but when I'm on an audio call, right? So 3 times a week, I'm on a call with the Postal Service. You know what? I have on my Mr. Zip because I love the Postal Service, and I allow myself to use my photos to take me somewhere else. Now, that's a picture. I don't know if anybody on this phone, on this call knows where that photo was taken. I will offer a special prize if you do know where it is. It's a very specific part of the world, so I doubt if you do. It's not Cape Cod, so I'll save you that. But if you throw in the right answer, I will send you one of our holders. But again, if somebody called me out of the blue and said, I need to chat with you right away, you know what? I have a Mr. Zip shirt on. They know I'm a male geek, so it still works. So think about, what you're going to be doing. But there's also something really great about video calls versus in-person customer calls. I only have to iron the front of my shirt. Who cares what the back looks like? Everybody's been talking about people wearing shorts. I'm not wearing shorts. I'm wearing trousers. But you only have to iron the front of the shirt. You only have to make sure the front of your jacket is clear. And I don't worry about whether my shoes are scuffed. So take advantage of that. This is a great opportunity for you. Talked about taking a break. This is the current break room for the Berkshire Consulting Company World Headquarters. Now, I was talking to Chris early in the day. You're expecting it to be 80. I'm very excited because the temperature right now has gone all the way up to 43 degrees. Now, for me, that's still warm enough to go outside, and I do go outside and sit. So, take a break, get outside whenever you can. And something else that you might want to take a break from is your screen. We're spending all this time on our screens during the day, and then you're using this screen on your break. We're using the TV screen later on to see what's on Netflix, what haven't you watched yet. So make sure you take a break from the screen. Now, I like to use these things. They've been around for a while. Some of you may have heard of them. They're called books. And I always have a book on my desk. I have a book on my table in the kitchen, and I have a book on my nightstand. I always have a book around me, and I'm going to recommend you consider reading books again. And I'm talking about physical books, right? That's really important. Why am I saying physical books? I'm not being anti-technology. It's just how your eyes react to the page versus how your eyes react to the screen. So taking a break from the screen and reading something, perhaps it's a printout that you're reading. Again, how you react to paper is different than how you react to a screen. So please make sure you take a break. Now, to take a break, you have to know what else you have to get done. So make sure that even though you're at home, you're still scheduling your day. This is an actual screenshot of my schedule for today. You see, starting off the morning with this webinar, then I have my check-in. If you notice, see, I'm not lying. That's my daily check-in. Then I know on Friday, I have to have my blog on markfallon.com ready. Well, if I don't remember to start working on it, it won't be written in time. So I actually set up an appointment with myself to ensure that I set aside time during the day to work on the blog. At 11, I have 2 different meetings. I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that yet. Hopefully at the 9 o'clock check-in with my team, we'll figure out how that's going to happen. Then I'm dedicating time this afternoon to download, edit this recording, and send out the email to everybody who's on the webinar. So I use it. So yes, the headquarters is my home office. It's a little bit of a joke that that's my headquarters. And you should think of it that way though, right? That, where you are is your headquarters. And it is a new way of thinking. And I think it's a great way to to really work on thinking of your home office as an actual place of business, because that's what we're doing, folks, right? This is a place of business. Now, I talked about the door. I close the door at the end of the day. Now, you may not be able to do that because you're working from the kitchen table or you're working from a shared room. So do yourself another favor. Shut off the computer. If you have to leave your computer at work when you're normally working, why are you leaving it on 24 hours a day at home? I often will at least one day during the weekend. Again, a lot of you, I know some people on this call, you run your own business and you never shut down, right? Our brains are constantly going and constantly going. But I shut down my laptop for hours, sometimes 24, the record is 36. But I shut it down, not just close it, but I shut it down. That way it has to be intentional for me to restart it, re-log in, and wait for it. It's really important. Remember I talked about giving grace to the people on the other end of the line and being kind to people on the other side of the screen? Well, give yourself a little grace, right? Be kind to yourself as well. That's really important. Give yourself a break. This is new. This is stressful. And be kind to yourself and leave it behind whenever you can at the end of the day. So are there any questions? I'll quickly see if I can unmute everybody. Unmute everybody. So I'm now going to allow everybody to be unmuted for a second if you have a question, or if you prefer, just type it in. Wow, everybody's still silent. Okay, so no questions. So we will do another raffle. So we will do another spin of the wheels. And we'll see who wins the next prize. So LaDonna Smith, you are next winner. Again, LaDonna, I will send you an email and then you can get back to me with your shipping address and I will mail it to you. And I will now turn it over to my new friend, Chris Huber, to close us out. Chris, thank you.
Thanks for what you shared, Mark. I do a pretty good amount of online meetings myself, not anywhere near what you do, and I don't have the equipment that you have, but all of that was really enlightening for me. So I really appreciate what you put together. And I even laughed at a couple of jokes there. So overall,
You're a kind man, Chris.
So thanks again for joining us today. That was awesome and super pertinent to what we're all going through. So it couldn't be more timely.
Great.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I wanted to go through a few announcements. And we've got a few things. You know, our calendar, guys, is changing a little bit because of COVID, of course. We still have a certain amount of time before we're going to be able to get together as usual, and we still have events that were already planned. So I'm going to go through what we have on the calendar right now at the moment. And the first one was the golf tournament, which was originally scheduled for this month. We do have a new date right now for October 2nd. So that still is a little bit tentative because we're not 100% sure we'll be able to do it, but you can go ahead and put October 2nd on your calendar for the golf tournament. And with any luck, we'll be able to move forward with that. Secondly, we have the Member Appreciation Night, which we go see the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp play. That is scheduled for July 24th. Still scheduled for that, but pending any COVID restrictions that the minor league baseball rules have. So still scheduled, and we'll keep you up to date. Next, there is the technology shootout, which is scheduled for August 12th. That will happen no matter what. It's either going to be a breakfast meeting at Deerwood, or it's going to be an online thing. So we can keep it on the calendar, and we'll just determine which way it's going to go as we get closer. PCC Day, that one, there will be some sort of PCC Day, but we're not sure if it's going to be in person or online at this point, or if it's going to be hosted at the local level or potentially nationally. So there's still some stuff moving around, but it is the week. We're scheduled for Friday, September 25th, and we'll have more details probably in a month. Last but not least, there is a virtual mail design professional course. And stay tuned for emails containing the details about this course. The virtual course is free, but if you want to take the exam, that part is $95. So tentatively, we're scheduling the 3rd week of June for the virtual mail design professional course. And I think that wraps us up for all of the agenda we have. Mark Fallon, thank you again for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Chris.
Awesome presentation. And thank you all for joining us as well. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week, and have a good one.
Thank you.